The check tears clean down the middle before Kevin Miles can even finish saying her name. Rebecca. Men like you don't walk in here carrying $5 million. She says it loud enough for the whole lobby to hear, loud enough that 3 heads turn from the teller line, loud enough that Ava's grip tightens around her father's forearm like she's trying to disappear into his sleeve. Rebecca Simmons doesn't check his account, doesn't call the issuing bank, doesn't glance at the folder of documents sitting untouched on the counter. She just hears. Once, twice. The pieces drift down onto marble polished bright enough to catch the ceiling lights, and for a moment nobody in the lobby breathes. Then phones come out. Get this trash out of my bank. Kevin doesn't raise his voice. He never does, not in 15 years of watching the world decide who he is before he said a word. He looks at Rebecca the way a man looks at a storm he's already weathered 100 times. Rebecca, he says quietly, you just made the most expensive mistake of your career. Security starts forward. Ava's small hand finds his again, and this time he doesn't let go. That's when the doors open. Aaron Watson walks in for a meeting that was supposed to close the biggest partnership of his career. His eyes land on the torn paper on the floor. Then on the girl clinging to a man being walked toward the exit. Then on the man's face. All the color leaves Aaron's. He crosses the lobby faster than a man in a $3,000 suit should be able to move, and when he reaches Kevin, he doesn't offer a handshake first. He offers the only word that matters. Sir. The lobby goes silent in a way that has weight to it, the kind of silence that changes the temperature of a room. Mr. Miles, Aaron says, and every syllable lands like a verdict. What happened here? If a story like this one hits close to home for you, if you've ever been underestimated by someone who never bothered to check the facts, go ahead and hit that follow button now, because what happens to Rebecca next is only the beginning. Now let's go back to where this really started. Kevin Miles is 43 years old, and for 7 of those years he has been raising his daughter alone. Their mornings look the same almost every day. Pancakes that Ava insists on flipping herself, even though half of them land on the counter instead of the pan. A quiet prayer before they leave the house, hands joined at the small kitchen table that used to seat 3. Kevin driving her to school in a pickup truck old enough to have a dent he's never bothered fixing, because fixing it never made the list of things that mattered. What nobody at Ava's school knows, what almost nobody knows, is that the man in the faded work jacket built Miles Global Holdings from a folding table in a rented office into an investment firm that quietly moves billions of dollars through hospitals, tech startups, and community foundations across the country. Kevin made that choice on purpose. After he lost his wife, he made a promise standing over her hospital bed that Ava would never grow up believing a person's worth could be read off a price tag. So he kept the truck, kept the plain clothes, kept the diners over the tasting menus. Success to Kevin was never something you wore. It was something you did quietly for people who'd never know your name. Today that quiet work has a destination. Half of the $5 million in his briefcase will secure Ava's future, untouched until she's old enough to understand what it means. The other half will launch the Miles Foundation, built to catch children like Ava, children raised by one exhausted, devoted parent, before they fall through the cracks Kevin knows too well. After the bank there's a plan. A bookstore where Ava's allowed 3 books instead of the usual one. Ice cream. Dinner at the diner on 5th that still remembers her order. It was supposed to take 15 minutes. Kevin has banked at this branch for nearly 15 years. Long before Miles Global had a name anyone recognized outside a small circle of investors who understood exactly what he was worth. But the woman behind the manager's desk today has only been at this branch a few weeks. She's never pulled his account. Never seen his history. Has no idea the man in the worn jacket has been a fixture in this building's ledger since before his daughter was born. Rebecca Simmons's eyes move over Kevin the moment he walks through the door. Then down to Ava. Then out toward the truck parked crooked in the visitor lot. And before either of them says a single word, she's already decided exactly who she believes Kevin Miles is. 3 customers who arrive after Kevin are served before him. He doesn't say anything about it. He never does. Ava, though, tugs at his sleeve after the second one gets waved forward with a bright, practiced smile. Rebecca never once turns in their direction. Daddy, why won't they help us? Kevin crouches slightly, keeping his voice low and warm. Sometimes patience tells us more about people than impatience ever could. It's a lesson he's taught her before at grocery stores and parent-teacher nights and every place the world has looked at them twice. She nods like she believes him, even though her small hand stays wrapped tight around 2 of his fingers. When they finally reach the counter, Kevin lays everything down in order. Driver's license, bank card, account number, the check, the sale documentation from the technology stake that funded it. He's thorough. He's always thorough. It's a habit from years of being asked to prove things other people never have to prove. Rebecca's eyes catch the number before anything else. $5 million. She doesn't reach for the phone to verify it with the issuing bank. She doesn't pull up his account, which would show 15 years of transactions that dwarf anything suspicious. Instead, she starts asking questions. Where the money came from, who gave it to him, why he's dressed the way he is, her voice climbing just enough that the tellers nearby start to notice. Kevin answers every question. Calmly. Completely. He even offers to let her call the issuing institution herself right now so she can hear the confirmation in real time. That's when a young teller 2 stations down leans over. Rebecca, Emily says quietly, I can verify the check. It'll take 2 minutes. I didn't ask you. Rebecca's voice snaps sideways, sharp enough that Emily flinches and steps back to her register. The 2 customers she'd been helping exchange a glance. By now the lobby has noticed. A woman near the entrance lifts her phone, angling it toward the counter without quite committing to recording yet. A man in line whispers something to the person next to him. Ava presses closer to her father's leg, sensing the shift in the air before she understands why. Kevin keeps his voice even. Rebecca, I'm happy to wait while you verify anything you need to. She doesn't look at him when she answers. She looks past him toward the lobby, like she's already decided this is a performance for everyone watching. This check is fake. She says it loud. Loud enough to carry to the far wall, loud enough that the man with his phone half-raised finally presses record, loud enough that Ava looks up at her father with wide, uncertain eyes. She hasn't verified a single detail. What happens next unfolds the way a small fire becomes a large one, not through any single spark but through everything that should have stopped it and didn't. Kevin explains again calmly. Rebecca talks over him. He offers again to let her make the call. She waves the offer away like it's an insult. Somewhere behind him, a customer mutters just loud enough to be heard. Maybe he's using the kid to make it look believable. Nobody in the lobby objects. Nobody lowers their phone. Ava hears it, every word, and her chin starts to tremble in the particular way Kevin has learned means she's fighting not to cry in public. He crouches beside her, one hand on her back, and murmurs something only she can hear. She nods, but the tears come anyway, quiet and quick, the kind a child tries to hide because she doesn't yet know that hiding hurt doesn't make it smaller. Rebecca reaches for the check. Please, Kevin says, and for the first time there's an edge under the calm. Verify it before you make a decision you can't take back. She looks at him the way she's looked at him since he walked in, like the warning is beneath her. Then she tears it. Once clean down the center. Then again and again, until what's left is confetti scattered across marble that cost more than most people's cars. The lobby goes silent in that specific way silence has when everyone realizes all at once that something has actually gone wrong. Ava bends down instinctively, reaching for the pieces like she can put $5 million back together with small hands. Kevin stops her gently, pulling her back up before her knees touch the floor. Security, Rebecca says, already reaching for the phone at her hip. And someone call the police. Marcus, the guard by the door, hesitates. He's watched this man walk through these doors calmly for longer than Rebecca's been employed at this branch, and nothing about the last 10 minutes has looked like a threat. But a direct order from a manager, in front of a lobby full of recording phones, doesn't leave much room to argue. Remove him. Now. Marcus steps forward, reluctant, apologetic in every line of his body even as his hand settles near Kevin's elbow. Kevin doesn't resist. He keeps Ava's hand in his, keeps his voice low enough that only she can hear him promise everything is going to be fine, keeps his eyes forward as he's walked toward the doors he entered through 15 minutes ago as a man with a plan for the afternoon. He looks back once at Rebecca, at the shredded pieces of a scholarship fund still settling on the floor. The truth is about to walk through that door, he says quietly. He has no way of knowing how soon. The doors open before Marcus can get Kevin past the second security gate. Aaron Watson steps through them the way he does most mornings, checking his watch, mentally rehearsing the terms of a partnership 18 months in the making, a partnership that depends entirely on the man he's about to meet trusting this institution with billions of dollars in managed assets. He isn't expecting to find that man being walked out the door. Aaron's eyes catch the torn paper scattered across the floor first. Then a small girl with tear-streaked cheeks clutching a hand. Then the face of the man attached to that hand. A face Aaron has sat across a negotiating table from exactly 4 times, a face he has, until this second, only ever seen in a boardroom. Every ounce of color drains out of Aaron's own. He doesn't walk toward Kevin. He moves, fast, direct, cutting straight across the lobby past customers who lower their phones just slightly, sensing something has shifted even before they understand what. He reaches Kevin and doesn't offer a handshake first. "Mr. Miles." His voice cracks slightly on the second word. "Sir." The lobby freezes. It's not dramatic in the way people expect drama to look. Nobody gasps. Nobody screams. It's quieter than that, the particular stillness of an entire room recalibrating everything it thought it understood in the space of 3 words. Rebecca's confidence, which has carried her through the last 15 minutes like armor, cracks first at the edges, then all at once. "Who authorized this?" Aaron's voice is low now, controlled, the kind of control that's worse than shouting. Rebecca raises her hand. Actually raises it like she's still certain even now, that she made the correct call. "I did." The check was clearly fraudulent and... "Do you have any idea," Aaron says, cutting her off, each word landing separately, "who you've just humiliated?" Rebecca's hand lowers slowly. For the first time since Kevin walked through the doors, uncertainty crosses her face. Aaron turns to Kevin and something in his posture shifts, not from executive to executive now, but from a man who runs a bank to a man standing in the wreckage of what his employee has done to a father and his daughter in front of a room full of witnesses. "Mr. Miles, I am so deeply sorry. Please," he gestures toward his own office, toward anywhere that isn't this lobby, "let's get Ava somewhere quiet." Kevin looks down at the shredded pieces still scattered near his feet. Looks at Ava, whose tears have slowed but whose small hand hasn't loosened its grip on his even slightly. Then he looks back at Rebecca. "Rebecca," he says, and his voice is calm again, level, the same voice he used the first time he warned her. "Do you understand yet what you did?" She opens her mouth. What comes out of it is about to make everything worse. Aaron doesn't wait for Rebecca to finish her sentence before he starts talking over her. Something Kevin has never seen a bank executive do to a manager in front of customers, but the moment seems to call for exceptions. "Kevin Miles," Aaron says loud enough for the lobby, founded Miles Global Holdings. His firm manages assets that touch nearly every major initiative this bank has funded in the last 5 years. He was here today to finalize a partnership worth billions of dollars. He pauses. "Was." The word lands hard. Somewhere near the tellers, a customer lowers her phone slightly, as if suddenly aware she's witnessing something bigger than she thought. Rebecca's mouth opens again. This time what comes out isn't an apology. "If he's so rich," she says, and there's real defensiveness in it now, real disbelief that anyone could expect her to have known, "why doesn't he dress like it?" The silence that follows is different from the one before. That silence was shock. This one is something closer to disgust, rippling quietly through the lobby as customers exchange glances that say what none of them say out loud. Aaron doesn't answer her. He doesn't need to. Emily steps forward instead, her voice smaller than Rebecca's but steady. "I offered to verify the check. Twice. I was told to get back to my station." Marcus, still standing near Kevin with his hand no longer anywhere near his arm, adds quietly, "Mr. Miles never raised his voice. Never threatened anyone. I want that on record." 2 police officers arrive at the entrance, radios crackling, expecting a fraud suspect. What they find instead is a branch manager with her arms crossed defensively, a CEO with his tie loosened and his composure barely intact, and a 9-year-old girl still holding her father's hand like letting go might make today real. It takes the officers less than 5 minutes of statements to understand exactly who the victim in this lobby is. By the time they leave, 3 separate videos are already uploading, from 3 separate phones, 3 separate angles, all capturing the same 15 seconds. A $5 million check torn to pieces and a word, "Sir," that changed the entire room in real time. Rebecca's authority, which had filled this lobby completely 20 minutes ago, has collapsed into something small and cornered. She looks around at the tellers who won't quite meet her eyes, at Aaron who won't stop looking at her like he's trying to understand how he missed this, at Kevin, who hasn't raised his voice once through any of it. "Rebecca," Aaron says finally, quiet enough now that only she and Kevin can hear, "go home. We'll discuss this tomorrow." It will be the last calm conversation anyone at this branch has with her for a long time. By midnight, the video has 900,000 views. By morning, it's on 4 different news channels, each one running some version of the same headline. A father humiliated, a daughter in tears, a torn check worth more than most people see in a lifetime, and a single word that exposed everything. Kevin doesn't watch most of it. He's never needed the internet's validation to know what happened in that lobby. But Ava finds a clip anyway, scrolling on a friend's tablet at school, and comes home quieter than usual, turning something over in her mind that Kevin can see but can't yet reach. The public reaction moves fast, the way it always does once a story has all the right pieces. A devoted single father, a hidden fortune, a scholarship fund for kids just like the ones watching, and a manager who, even after learning who she'd humiliated, still hadn't apologized. That last part is what the internet can't let go of. Within 2 days, former customers start coming forward. A woman who says Rebecca refused to process her loan application at a previous branch, no explanation given beyond a look. A former teller who left the company entirely rather than keep working under her. A pattern emerges, not of one bad afternoon, but of years quietly ignored by a company more interested in her numbers than her conduct. Aaron launches a full internal investigation before the bank's legal team even finishes their first call. Rebecca is suspended within 48 hours, her badge deactivated, her name now attached to a story that will follow her long after this news cycle fades. Kevin, meanwhile, receives more calls than he can return. Reporters, other executives, people from his own foundation's early donor list wanting to know if this changes the launch timeline. He answers almost none of them. What he does answer is Ava later that night, sitting across from him at the kitchen table where they've had 1,000 ordinary dinners. She's been quiet all evening, pushing food around her plate, and Kevin recognizes the particular stillness of a child working up to a question too big for the room. "Daddy?" she finally says. He sets down his fork. "Yeah, baby?" She doesn't ask it yet. Not tonight. But he can see it forming behind her eyes, the shape of a question that's going to matter more than anything Aaron Watson or the news or 100,000 strangers online have to say about any of this. It comes 2 nights later, after the story has moved from local news to national, after Aaron has called twice with updates Kevin only half listens to. Ava is supposed to be brushing her teeth. Instead she appears in the doorway of the kitchen, toothbrush still in hand, and asks the question that's clearly been sitting in her chest since the bank. "Daddy, if you weren't rich, would anyone have believed you?" Kevin doesn't answer right away. He wants to give her something reassuring and simple, the way he's given her simple answers to hard questions since she was small enough to fit in one arm. But this question doesn't have a simple answer, and lying to her has never been part of how he raises her. "I don't know, baby," he says finally. "I want to tell you yes. But I think the truth is, probably not." Ava sits down slowly across from him, toothbrush forgotten on the table between them. "That's not fair." "No," Kevin agrees. "It isn't." It's the first time all week he said out loud what's actually been sitting in his chest since Rebecca's hand closed around that check, that this was never really about him. He has the money, the lawyers, the name that eventually made a CEO cross a lobby at a dead run. Most people in Rebecca's path don't. The next morning, Aaron calls with an offer. A substantial settlement, quietly wired in exchange for Kevin's silence and a clean, uneventful end to the story. Kevin listens to the entire offer before he answers. "No." Aaron sounds genuinely confused. "Kevin, this is more than fair given? This was never about money, Aaron?" Kevin looks across the kitchen at Ava, who's pretending to do homework while clearly listening to every word. "My daughter asked me a question I couldn't answer honestly. I'm not interested in a check that makes that question go away. I'm interested in making sure the next kid in that lobby never has to ask it." There's a long pause on the line. "What do you want instead?" Kevin pulls a legal pad toward him, the same one he uses for foundation planning, for board notes, for the quiet architecture of a life built on more than appearances, and starts writing. It isn't a list of demands born out of anger. It's something closer to a blueprint. Kevin meets Aaron and the full board 2 weeks later, in the same building where a manager once decided who he was before he said a single word. He doesn't come with lawyers stacked 3 deep or threats about pulling his accounts. He comes with the legal pad, 6 pages of handwritten notes, and Ava's question still sitting somewhere behind everything he says. "I'm not here for revenge," he tells the room. "Rebecca made her choices, and the consequences of those choices are hers to carry. I'm here because this can't just be about one manager and one afternoon. It has to be about what happens to the next family who walks through those doors looking like they don't belong." His conditions are specific, deliberate, the kind of thing only someone who's spent years building systems for a living could design. Mandatory identity and account verification before any high-value transaction can be denied. No exceptions, no discretion left to assumption. An independent audit of every discrimination complaint filed against staff in the last 5 years, conducted by a third party with no ties to the bank. Real whistleblower protections so the next Emily who tries to do the right thing doesn't have to risk her job to do it. Customer dignity training mandatory for every employee at every branch, not a single seminar but an ongoing standard. And annual funding, permanent, for the Miles Foundation scholarships. Not as an apology, but as a partner in the work Kevin was already trying to start the day this all began. Aaron agrees to every point without negotiation. The board, chastened by 2 weeks of headlines and a stock price that hasn't fully recovered, doesn't argue either. Rebecca's termination is finalized that same week. Her banking license goes under formal review, and the investigation into her history at 3 previous branches expands well beyond what anyone initially expected. Emily, meanwhile, is called into Aaron's office for a very different conversation. She walks out of it as the newly appointed assistant branch manager of the Ellsworth location, the youngest person to hold that title in the bank's history, and the only person in that lobby who tried twice to do the right thing before anyone with more power was willing to. Kevin signs the partnership 2 days later. Not the version that was on the table before the check was torn. A stronger one, built on terms that protect the next family the way nobody protected his. That night, he tells Ava everything in language a 9-year-old can hold on to. "Did we win?" she asks. Kevin thinks about it for a long moment. "We didn't just win," he says. "We made it so the next person doesn't have to fight this hard to be believed." 3 months later, Kevin and Ava walk back into the same branch. It doesn't look dramatically different. Same marble floor, same high windows, same steady hum of a Tuesday morning. But something underneath it has changed. The way a house feels different once you know it's finally safe. Every customer who walks through the door is greeted the same way, regardless of what they're wearing or what they drove to get there. New posters near the entrance outline customer rights and complaint procedures in plain, unmissable language. A framed notice by the teller stations lists the bank's updated verification standards, the kind of quiet, procedural change nobody notices unless they know what it replaced. Emily meets them at the door herself, her new title stitched onto a name badge she clearly hasn't gotten tired of yet. She hugs Ava before she shakes Kevin's hand, and there's something in the gesture that says more than any speech could. Toward the back of the lobby, a small ceremony is underway, folding chairs, a modest banner, and 6 teenagers sitting with their families, each of them holding an envelope that represents the first scholarships awarded through the Miles Foundation. Every one of them is being raised by a single parent. Every one of them, until today, had no idea a program like this existed. Aaron finds Kevin near the back of the small crowd and shakes his hand, genuinely this time, without the panic of that first terrible morning behind it. "I want you to know," Aaron says quietly, "most people in your position would have taken the settlement and let us disappear quietly. You didn't. This bank is better because you refused to." Kevin just nods. He isn't interested in being thanked for something that should have never needed doing. As they're leaving, Ava tugs his sleeve and points toward the entrance, where a young father is walking in with his son, wearing a jacket that's seen better years, holding a folder of documents against his chest like he already knows he'll have to prove something he shouldn't have to prove. A teller greets him before he's even reached the counter. Warmly. No hesitation. Ava watches the whole exchange, then looks up at her father. Is that what winning looks like? Kevin thinks about Rebecca, about the pieces of paper on the floor, about the question his daughter asked him at the kitchen table that he couldn't fully answer. Winning isn't watching one person fall, he says. It's making sure the next person never has to go through what we did. They walk out into the afternoon sun together, hand in hand, the same way they walked in that morning 3 months ago, except this time nobody in the lobby decides who they are before they've said a word. If this story moved you, don't scroll past without hitting follow. The next one might be the story that changes how you see the world outside your own front door.